Hi, everybody. Whether you just started unschooling a couple of months ago or you've been at it for years, the word deschooling has certainly popped up. And the most universal question seems to be, how long is this deschooling going to go on? We're always in a hurry, aren't we? We want to get through things fast to get to the good stuff. I wonder where that kind of conditioning happened. Were you staring at the clock in your classroom, waiting for the bell to ring, trudging through the school day, waiting for the good stuff? The good news is you don't have to endure irrelevant, out of context information in an unschooling world. And the good stuff is happening now, all around you, for you and for your kids. Because I've been talking to people for a couple of decades now, I know what's going to come next. You're going to say, yeah, I get all that. But this is the good stuff. They lay around on the couch. They're glued to their devices. They're barely interacting with me. Doesn't it get better than this? Where's the inspired creativity from all this freedom I'm supporting? Well, when we first start unschooling, we may have all sorts of fabulous stories in our heads about how this is going to look. We may remember our own childhoods and wish we had had these kinds of opportunities. But our child doesn't seem to be taking advantage of it. They're not diving in with the gusto we imagined. Here's the problem: we can't see what's happening in their heads. But if we've been reading about unschooling, and maybe you need to do that a little more regularly, we know that human brains are hardwired to learn. They're constantly processing. And when they get done with that, they move to something else that's intriguing to them. That does not mean it will be intriguing to us or that we'll even know it's happening. And that's okay. Deschooling is happening for our kids and for us, but in all different ways. So, here are a few things to remember about our kids and their deschooling process. To know what's going on with our kids, it takes time. They have to trust us enough to share things without worrying that we're going to try to mold them or change the situation into something we view as acceptable. Trust takes time to build. Little steps in that direction are the only way. We don't always realize what their brains need, but their brains know, and they move them in the direction they need to go. Maybe they need more recovery time from a bad school experience. Maybe they need to see if you really mean what you say. Something else to remember: our vision of an exciting unschooling life may not be the same as their vision. We may need to observe more to see what their personalities are like. They change over time, and certainly they change based on this new environment they have. Yes, it's still their home, but they're having a lot more say in how their life goes. We need to prioritize building trust so that we can learn more about how they're viewing everything. And lastly, they may still be in the habit of keeping their cards close to their chest, not wanting to tip their hand. It can be all really confusing, especially if the adults in their world seem a little bit confused too. They may not be sure that their home is the safe place yet. They will, though. And so here are a few things to remember about your deschooling: that most of this is a mindset issue. We have to peel back what various things mean to us and maybe even why we think they're important. What we often find is that we're operating on someone else's priorities without thinking through what our priorities are. It takes time to do that. You've got to develop that patience muscle of yours. Doing these action steps each week, and you can always go back and do any of them that we've talked about before, they're going to help you focus on your own perspective and grow your own knowledge. Don't be in a rush to see progress. As you read and learn more, you will probably change your mind on what progress actually is. Demanding to see something now would still be looking through that school lens. And you're actively dismantling that. So don't let fear make you reach back for it. Next, you need to stop with comparisons. We have had a lot of years where we've been conditioned to compare ourselves to others. Instead of helping our children figure out their own personal best or figuring it out for ourselves, that value and worth is often determined by comparing ourselves to others. So it's time to recognize that that's a school's tactic for keeping kids performing and a mainstream parenting way of going ahead and continuing on that same path. This ties into deschooling because we need to undo this kind of thinking. It works against us as we try to truly individualize this learning path. And then remember that formula that unschoolers toss around. You know, the one where they say, for every year that you or your child went to school or used the school approach to learning, that's how many months it will take for you to deschool. Well, your mileage may vary on that. If you didn't like school very much, you may move through deschooling really quickly. If you were a stellar student, you learned how to do well in the system, you're going to have more to undo, and it's going to take you a little longer. And then if you were a teacher, you're going to have even more time. It's just going to take a while. But unschooling parents do this all the time, and you can too. So, I'm sure you've noticed by now I did not answer the question, how long is this going to take? That's because there's no real answer. Anybody that tells you there is, well, they either have too simplistic of a viewpoint or they just haven't been at it long enough. Because initially, deschooling takes a while because we have a lot of fears and our ideas have been conditioned based upon these beliefs. The time it takes to work through these is going to depend on how tightly you hold on to them. It helps to examine the idea of, what am I waiting for? Break that apart and see what's there. Sometimes we work through something and then we breathe this sigh of relief, and then we turn a corner and a new fear or misconception is standing in our path, forcing us to examine it. So then we know what our next step is. It's really just ever evolving parenting, right? So one other question may come up for you. How will I know when we're done deschooling? And one way you'll know is that you'll simply be living your life alongside your child. You'll engage and offer help, not because you have a mental note in your mind of academic expectations, but because what you have to offer will be helpful for your child in what they're exploring right now. You'll know you're done, although realistically, with kids going through new stages all the time, we're bound to get triggered again. Maybe it'll have a smaller impact, though, as we go along. But when you notice that you're not worrying about what they're learning or if they know enough, you'll look back and you'll realize you've actually been trusting the process. And then you've made some progress with deschooling. I think, too, when we stop asking ourselves, are we done deschooling? Are we unschooling yet? When we stop worrying about those kinds of things, then we know that we've moved into unschooling. Okay. So since deschooling is something that we have to face over and over, I'm probably going to do more podcasts on this and different aspects of it. But for now, I just wanted to help you maybe address this question of, are we there yet? So you guys have a great week, and I will see you in all the usual places. Take care.